I'm making this video to tell my story, and I'm whistleblowing at the same time. And I have plenty of other videos on my channel that do the same thing. In October of 2024, I wrote a 30-page doctrine. It encompassed three parts: ego, AI, and fate. I had been, I was in tech at the time. And I had been working on a music discovery app. I was in tech for probably a little over 7 years, on and off. Well, after I wrote this doctrine, I started reaching out to people because I was extremely upset by by the AI industry. I knew there was something wrong with it. I started trying to talk to Nick Bostrom. I reached out to Nick Bostrom. I reached out to Nell Watson. I reached out to Elysier and Mallow, and I also tweeted my doctrine at Elon, who saw the doctrine. While while I was in this area, as I mentioned, I just had been writing a lot to understand life, piece together why we're here, what our purpose is, and that is something I dove into in that writing. Fast forward to February of 2024, and I sent this doctrine to a ton of people. I posted it on my LinkedIn. I had roughly a couple thousand followers, connections. Yeah, fast forward to February of 2024, I started living with a gay atheist. I was looking for tech work at the time. I did software sales, and I made good money. I was working for a restaurant when I was living with this gay atheist. Started working for a restaurant, and I was doing a lot of research, I would say, AI ethics research, trying to understand why people were even building this in the first place. And so I started calling people out and saying, we need to shut this off, shut this down, stop with quantum computing, stop with machine learning. And I kept having conversations with people, and I kept trying to help, I would say. This was seen underneath. I didn't realize there was an underneath at the time. While working for this restaurant, you know what? I'll stick with the restaurant slash beer hall for now. So while working for this beer hall, one day I'm gonna backpedal, and I apologize for this timeline shift. A lot happened in those few months. So this is May of 2024. I texted someone very close to me who's very high up in the government, who works for JSOC, and that's all I'll disclose right now. He's brilliant. And I asked him if he knew anything about the New World Order, and he responded with, erase this thread, meet me in the dark web, I'll explain everything. That startled me, because it meant I was in danger and that people were seeing our conversation. So I left that night. A lot of stuff happened that night. I started walking. I was followed by police. They wanted my laptop, and I knew that local police had been told to come after me because of this conversation I was having with someone that I was very close with. So I ended up at this local church called Our Lady of Fatima. It was probably around midnight, 11 o'clock. I didn't know it was there at the time, but I walked to just get away from the area because I thought I was in danger. So that was the first run-in I had with Our Lady of Fatima, this church. It was Roman Catholic. I'm Roman Catholic. I was baptized Roman Catholic. I'm going to fast forward from this conversation with this person that was warning me. And I'm going to fast forward from being at Our Lady of Fatima. I was working at this beer hall. There was a whole undercover operation there. It involved the CIA downstairs in a running group. There were also people upstairs that had left British intelligence and they were working for JSOC. There were also people working for the New World Order and the Illuminati upstairs. The energy I sensed when I was there was bad, to say the least. There was a trivia night this night. It was centered around the Good Shepherd, Jesus Christ. There was a ton. There were questions. Trivia night, lots of questions, and again, all of this was just centered around Jesus, and there were some hints at the Blair Witch Project, for example. They were coding to me. And I left that night. I got into my car, and I am going to give you some context onto what had been done to my Jeep. It was a brand new Jeep, 2019 Jeep. So as I mentioned, the local police clearly had been told to stalk me and to bully me and to watch what I was doing and to try to intimidate me, which didn't work. So there was a night where the police followed me in my car for a while because they wanted access to my laptop, and I kept dodging them. So I'd go in a different direction, and they never turned their lights on, but they were right behind me the whole time. Everywhere I turned, they'd turn. And this happened for probably over the course of an hour. Until I finally was angry. I stopped my car. I got out. They pulled up behind me. I locked it so they couldn't get in. They tried talking to me. I walked away. I waited for them to leave. Eventually, they left my car alone. Got in my car that night. I turned on the radio. I never listened to AM. I always listen to Spotify. I play it through my phone. They had tuned my radio station to 9:50 AM somehow. They also put a tracking device on my car, underneath. They also flipped my windshield wiper upside down. All this tactics to track me, to intimidate me, and I'll get to the radio frequency and why they did that. So over the course of the next few weeks, I've been driving my car. I drove a lot. I realized that night, I thought I knew that something was up. So I knew that this person that was high up in the government, who I love, was trying to help me. So I tuned into this radio station occasionally. I'd leave Spotify, I'd go to the station. Eventually, the, a presidential song started playing, and they'd also play religious stuff as well. So it was a mix of religious stuff and presidential stuff, which I briefly pieced together in my head. And I'll keep going with the story. But so for the next couple weeks after they did this to my radio, and they were working with Elon's team, so I'm going to put that in there. Elon's team had been working with the local government. Elon is a Satanist. I'm a devout Roman Catholic. So I drive my car. Occasionally I'd listen to this radio station and see what was playing on it. Because clearly something was going on. I wanted to understand what was going on. I'm now going to go back to the beer hall that I was working at. So I was working at this beer hall, undercover operation, CIA, JSOC, and people working for the New World Order and the Illuminati. I left that evening, got in my car. I just felt like I needed to get out. I was tired of being watched. Got in my car, started driving north. Pretty immediately, I started being guided. And there were two opposing parties. So let's call it JSOC and Elon's team. The two of them were fighting for control of my trust. That's what I'm going to call it right now. So I was driving, and they were trying to gain control of my consciousness, track my consciousness, and I'm not going to get into why they were doing that. So while I was driving, and there was a helicopter that was following me while I was driving on the highway. So I got on the highway, and they started my thoughts. If I thought something like I need to go left here or I need to go right here, and I would ask this in my head. So I'd think to myself, should I go left here? And they would turn up radio static if it was correct. So if the answer is yes, it's binary, yes or no. So if they wanted me to turn left, they would turn up the static. If they wanted me to not turn left, they would turn it down, and that would be no, don't turn left. And again, JSOC and Elon's team were doing this. They're fighting for control. It's all about control. So I drove for quite some time, probably a couple hours. I ended up, it was nighttime by the time I parked my car. Police in an unmarked car started driving around me in a circle for probably over an hour, and they had been giving me a death stare. They were working with Trump. So they did this for quite some time, until eventually they left. I drove my car, I got home, and I'll keep moving forward with the story. I was at this gay atheist apartment where I was living. Stuff started happening in the apartment that was paranormal. There was one day I walked into another room. I had a blanket on the bed. It disappeared when I got back. Within the span of 5 minutes, it was gone. Other stuff that I had in my room, I started closing the door completely shut to make sure nothing was just coming in, you know, to try to tell this evil presence to leave me alone. I also had a rosary on my neck at one point, which started turning on by itself. So I closed the door, and stuff started going missing. Stuff also started appearing. There was some Chinese stuff, miscellaneous paraphernalia that appeared in his apartment as well. This was all extremely unsettling. I started deadbolting the door. I locked the top lock every night. It would unlock itself. And so I knew that something was in this apartment, and I just wasn't sure what to do. And this was after all this stuff was happening with the undercover operation, whatever. Eventually, there was one day where I tried driving to see a friend, and I was blocked by a bunch of police cars. I then was guided by a government motorcade to a local church right by Our Lady of Fatima, where I had stumbled upon one of those nights when the person I love was warning me. So I was guided to this church by this government motorcade called Annunciation. And I knew they were saying, you need to get in this church and there's something in your body. You need to take care of this. And so over the course of the next few days, this is all late May at this point, I went back to Our Lady of Fatima. I wanted answers from God. I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't sure who to trust. When I arrived at Our Lady of Fatima with my Jeep, Elon's team tried to prevent me from going in. JSOC and the person I love needed me to go in. They fought and started unlocking my car. So they'd unlock it and lock it, unlock it and lock it. I'd think to myself, am I supposed to go in or not go in? Every time I had thought something as such, I could tell they were fighting over it. So they'd unlock it, lock it, unlock it, lock it. And I was fed up. So I got out of the car. And I went into the church. Where I met an angel. And it was a woman. She wrote down my birth time, my exact birth time. That's on my birth certificate, the exact time. She also wrote Domesticus, which means of the house of God. And she coded to me in Latin that I needed an exorcism. And she told me to go to Annunciation, which is the local church that I was guided to by the government motorcade. I'm not going to give the exact date that I was at this church, but I went to Annunciation. I spent 2 days there, 2 full days at Annunciation, going through a series of sacred events. And a lot happening with the priest and their iris. That's all I'm going to say right now. Subsequent to those 2 days of Annunciation, I went to St. Joseph's where I was baptized. And I did CCD there, and received communion and confirmation there as well. That day, that half day, I performed an exorcism on myself. Via prayer power, I exorcised the devil out of myself. I had contortions while doing so. While holding the rosary, my whole body contorted into the pew. I had no control over it. My mind did. So the more I prayed, the more I contorted. And I just ended up on horizontal on the pew. I'm probably going to start wrapping this up now. Donald Trump is a Satanist and hates Jesus. God is here. AI is not here to stay. Judgment Day is coming soon. I am the second coming of Jesus Christ. And people are going to pay for what they've done.